The children were still laughing when the flames began to rise. It was a warm July afternoon in 1944. Families had gathered under a massive circus tent in Hartford, Connecticut. Bright colors filled the air. Psst. The smell of popcorn and sawdust mixed with the sweet sound of music. Parents sat beside their children watching acrobats fly high above them. For a brief moment, the world felt safe again. Even in the shadow of war, no one noticed the danger at first. High above the crowd near the top of the tent, a small flicker appeared. It was easy to miss, just a tiny flame, dancing quietly against the canvas ceiling. But the tent had been waterproofed with a mixture that made it highly flammable. Within seconds, that small flicker began to grow. A performer looked up, then another, and then someone screamed. The fire spread faster than anyone could understand. The canvas roof turned from bright white to a terrifying orange glow. Burning pieces began to fall, like fiery snow, onto the crowd below. The band stopped playing. The laughter disappeared. Panic took its place. Parents grabbed their children. People rushed toward the exits. But there was a problem. There were not enough of them. The circus tent could hold thousands, but the main exits were too few, and some were partially blocked. In the confusion, people pushed and stumbled. Chairs tipped over. Children were separated from their families. The air filled with thick, choking smoke. A young mother tried to hold on to her daughter's hand. For a moment, she did. Then the crowd surged, and her hand slipped away. Inside the tent, the heat became unbearable. The fire raced across the ceiling like a living thing. Within minutes, it covered the entire top of the tent. The structure began to collapse. Outside, people could hear the screams. They ran toward the tent, trying to help. Some tore at the canvas walls, creating new openings. Others reached inside, pulling people out one by one. Firefighters arrived quickly, but the flames were already out of control. Time was running out. A man named Donald, a father of two, had been sitting near the center. When the fire started, he lifted his son onto his shoulders and told his wife to stay close.
Ow.
But the smoke grew thick. He could barely see. He moved forward, step by step, calling out to his wife. There was no answer. He made it outside with his son. But his wife and daughter were still inside. He turned back toward the burning tent, but the heat forced him back. There was nothing he could do. He stood there, holding his son, watching the fire consume everything behind him. In waiting, the fire burned for less than 10 minutes. But in those 10 minutes, everything changed. When it was over, the massive tent had collapsed into a smoldering heap. The bright colors were gone. The laughter was gone. In their place was silence and loss. Rescue workers moved through the wreckage searching for survivors. Some people were found alive, badly injured, calling out for loved ones. Others were not moving at all. The hospitals filled quickly. Doctors and nurses worked without rest. They treated burns, smoke inhalation, broken bones. Families crowded the halls, searching for names, for faces, for any sign of hope, but for many there was none. One of the most haunting stories from that day was a little girl found alone. She had blonde hair, curled neatly, and she wore a pretty white dress. She was never identified. No one came forward to claim her. Became known simply as Little Miss 1565, named after a number assigned to her. Her story touched the entire nation. Who was she? Where was her family? Those questions lingered for years. In total, 167 people lost their lives that day. Many of them were children. Hundreds more were injured. It remains one of the deadliest fire disasters in American history. But beyond the numbers, there were stories. A brother who carried his younger sister to safety, only to collapse from exhaustion. A performer who stayed behind to help strangers escape, never making it out himself. A mother who searched for her child for days, refusing to give up hope. These were ordinary people, on an ordinary day, caught in something they could never have imagined. In the weeks that followed, the nation tried to understand what had happened. Investigations revealed the dangerous materials used on the tent, the lack of proper safety measures, and the absence of enough exits. Changes were made. Laws were strengthened. Safety rules became stricter. But for the families who lost loved ones, none of that could bring them back. Years later, the mystery of Little Miss 1565 was finally solved. Through careful work and determination, her identity was discovered. She had a name. She had a family who had been searching for answers. And at last, she was no longer unknown. Today, the Hartford Circus Fire is not as widely remembered as some other tragedies. Time has a way of softening even the deepest wounds. But for those who lived through it, and for those who lost someone that day, the memories never faded. They remember the music, laughter, the moment everything changed, the fire that came without warning. Because sometimes the most ordinary moments become the ones that haunt us forever.